Hello friends, it's Kristine Vicente with Queen City Stamp Art, and I'm back today with another clean and simple card featuring another watercoloring technique. We're going to be using the Flowers of Friendship stamp set for this card, as well as the punch that coordinates with this set. These are both sold separately in the 2022-23 annual Stampin' Up catalog. So we're going to be using these today. We're also going to be using a embossed background panel using the Pretty Flowers embossing folder. And we're going to be using the largest circle die cut from the Stylish Shapes dies to complete this card. So not too many supplies, but I just wanted to let you know what we were using. So for this particular watercoloring technique today, we are going to be using watercolor paper, the Fluid 100 watercolor paper from Stampin' Up. And what I did was these sheets are about 5 by 7 inches, so I cut one in half, and we're going to be using this for the technique. I'm going to bring in my my silicone mat as well as a paper towel for this so we don't get ink all over the surface. And we're going to be using, to create the background today, we're going to be using a couple of re-inkers. I have Melon Mambo and Daffodil Delight here. And we're going to be using this block as a color palette for these. So I'm just going to put a little bit of ink, a few drops of each color on this palette. You get a bit of a bolder look from this rather than using the ink pads, but if you have the ink pads, certainly this can be done with those as well, using those as a palette. So I'm just gonna, I have these two different inks on my block now, and I'm gonna be creating a background that we're going to stamp some flowers on and punch them out. And so what I'm gonna do is take my water spritzer bottle, and I'm gonna give this a good spritzing because I want this paper to be pretty moist. So that's a pretty good coverage of moisture. And then I'm going to take my broad water painter from the water painter set. This is the one with the broad bristles. And I'm just going to make sure that the paper is evenly coated by just brushing this over the top. It's pretty wet. I can still see, there's no puddling, but I can see moisture across the whole surface of the paper, and that's what you want. When it curls up a little bit, then you know that it has enough moisture. So now we're just going to take, and I have an extra little dish of plain water. It looks blue because the bottom of the glass is blue, but it's just plain water. I'm just going to dip my brush in it, and I'm going to start with the lightest color. So I'm going to just I'm just going to put some color on here all over the surface of this. I'm just tapping it on with my brush. And because the paper's already moist, it blends really nicely like that. And then I'm going to just kind of rinse it off and kind of rub it on my towel. And then I'm going to get some more water on my brush and get this nice and liquidy, the Melon Mambo. And we're going to add this. And we're just going to kind of go around the areas that we did in yellow. And you'll see that it's just a much bolder color than if you use the ink pad, because the re-inker is just more concentrated. And I'm just swiping it on. There's no kind of form or pattern or anything to it. I'm just trying to kind of make it on there so that it's a little bit, and I'm going to kind of blend it in a little bit in places so that there's some orange created, because I like the kind of that orangey look that you get from mixing pink and yellow. And so then you have this like kind of mottled piece of paper. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this dry. And it's going to take longer than I would like to be on video. So I'm setting that aside. And I'm going to set this aside too so we don't get it all over us. And I'm going to bring in a piece that I've already done. So I did this one earlier, and this is completely dry now. And it's all blended, and there's some orange in there and some yellow, and we have this really great background. I love it. So now we're going to bring in the card supplies to make this beautiful card. And we're going to start with a panel of basic white thick for the card base. And I'm just going to crease this with my bone folder. And we're going to add a layer of another layer of basic white that I've embossed with that Flowers embossing folder, which is so pretty. So we're going to add this to the card base as kind of the background. I'm going to make sure I get that all the way around the edges because I don't want want it to lift up at all. And then I'm just adding this to the front of the card in the center here. So we have a nice panel of embossing to start with. This is going to be our focal panel. So for this, we're going to add a sentiment from the stamp set. And we're going to be using the little card Big Thanks sentiment. And we're just going to stamp that here to the right of the circle. And I think I mentioned this, but this is the largest circle from those Stylish Shapes dies. So we've added that, and we're just going to set this aside for a minute, and we're going to work on this panel. So I've got the two different flower sizes. So you've got the large one and the small one. These can be used separately, just like individual images punched out, or you can layer them up. And so we're going to layer them up today. And I'm going to bring my Memento ink back in, and we're going to be stamping these with the Memento black ink. So whenever I'm trying to coordinate with a punch, I look to see what the direction is. So for this one, I'm going to want to stamp for the larger one the flowers so that they're shaped like a cross to make them easy to punch out. And then for the smaller one, I'm going to stamp them in the X shape. So we're going to start with the larger. And for this card, I'm going to need 2 of these. So I'm just going to stamp them on here. I'm going to do them one at a time. So we'll start with this. And I like to do them one at a time because I want to make sure I don't stamp them too close to each other, because there's quite a bit of waste when you do it this way because of the extra shapes that are being punched out at the same time. So I want to be really strategic about it. So there's the first one. And now I'm going to stamp the next one. And I'm just going to line that up with the punch. There we go. And now we have these 2 of the larger flowers, and we're just going to end up layering them together like this. But you get such a beautiful mix of colors on those little pieces. There's no other way, I don't think, to get this except maybe some ink blending, but I think the watercolor just really lets some of the other colors shine through in a way that ink blending doesn't. So that's the big one, and we're layering those together. Now we're going to do a couple of the small ones. So let's see here. I think I'll do this. There we go. And now we have all the flowers we need. And then I was thinking that it would be nice to have some, and that's kind of what's left over. So we do have a little bit of extra space to punch some more if we need them. And then I was thinking it would be nice to include some leaves on these flowers. So I just pulled out a scrap piece of Granny Apple Green, and I'm just gonna gently kind of punch out some leaves here. I'm just gonna try to just strategically punch some leaves that we can put together to add to this beautiful card. So now we're all done with the stamping part, and we're just going to do some assembling now and put these together. So for this little thing, I'm just going to take this off for now, and I'm going to bring back my silicone mat. And we're going to do a little bit of gluing here. So let me see, I got my wet glue, which is very helpful for this. And I'm just going to put some glue in the center, and I'm going to offset these flowers. And I think I'll put some in that one. And I just really love the lights and darks that you get from these. They're so pretty. I want that to be on the top, so I'm gonna put some ink on this one, and I'll put this little lighter one on the top. They just look so pretty together. So now that the flowers are made, we'll arrange them onto the card, onto the panel that we've created here for them. And so I think we'll start with this big one, and I'm gonna add some liquid adhesive to the back of this. And I'm going to kind of add this over here. And then we'll put a smaller one next to it, like this. And then we'll put another one kind of on the diagonal. Like that. And then we're going to glue some of the leaves in too. So I'll probably just put a little bit of adhesive on this leaf, both sides, and just kind of tuck it under here, like that. And then we'll glue these together. And I'm using this nice silicone mat so I don't get glue all over my paperwork surface. And then we can tuck these in too, right here, like that. And then when the glue dries on here, I'll just wipe it right off. That looks very nice. So we'll just put this aside now, and we will add this to the card front with some dimensionals. So we just sort of we built our little focal area, and because we use those bright colors, it's going to really pop off the white. It's very high contrast, and it just looks so pretty. So we'll add this here like this. And then the crowning touch, of course, are the gems. So we'll add those to the center of the flowers for some sparkle. Start with the big one right in the center. And these are really pretty. They fit really perfectly in the center of the flowers. These are the champagne rhinestones that I'm using for this, because they have sort of that tinge of warmth to them that will coordinate beautifully with the colors of ink that we picked for this card. So I hope you enjoyed the card for today. I had a lot of fun making this one and creating that watercolor background. I think you could do these in a range of colors and have a lot of fun with this, depending on what color re-anchors you have. So I hope you'll give this a try today, and we'll see you next week.